My name is Ronan Mercer, and I'm about to tell you how I discovered that revenge, like a fine wine, tastes better when you let it breathe. It started on a Tuesday morning when my wife Talia decided to redecorate our marriage by removing herself from it. Not permanently, mind you. That would have required actual commitment to a decision. No, this was more like a trial separation where only one party knew there was a trial happening. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm going to Miami with Damien for a week, she announced, not looking up from her phone where she was presumably scheduling her next Instagram post. If you don't like it, divorce me. Talia Vey, she kept her maiden name for brand purposes, was what people generously called an influencer. I called her a professional narcissist with a ring light addiction, but then again, I'm the guy who married her, so what does that say about my judgment? Miami sounds nice, I said, buttering my toast with the same enthusiasm I'd developed for most of our conversations. Business or pleasure? She finally looked up, and I saw that familiar gleam in her eyes. The same look a cat gets right before it knocks your coffee mug off the table. Does it matter? Damien's company is launching a new campaign. I'm consulting. Damien Cray, CEO of Cray Creative, a boutique marketing firm that specialized in making mediocre products look revolutionary. He was the kind of guy who wore expensive watches and quoted Sun Tzu in business meetings. Also, he'd been sleeping with my wife for 3 months. Did I mention I knew about that? Because I did. I'm not the bumbling husband from a sitcom who's the last to figure out his wife's extracurricular activities. I'm a corporate strategist. I get paid to notice patterns and predict outcomes. When your wife starts doing yoga at midnight and her girls' nights require lingerie shopping, the data points start forming a pretty clear picture. Consulting, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it now? Talia's smile could have powered a small city. Don't be jealous, Ronan. It's not attractive on you. She left that afternoon with 3 suitcases for a week-long trip, which should have been my first clue that this wasn't really about business consulting, unless the business was humiliating me, in which case she was about to earn her PhD. The Instagram posts started immediately. Talia in a bikini by the pool, Talia and Damien at dinner, Talia on a yacht, wind-blown and glowing, with Damien's arm around her waist. Each post tagged me, because apparently public humiliation wasn't complete without making sure the victim was watching. My phone buzzed constantly. Notifications from her posts, messages from friends who'd seen them, and increasingly uncomfortable silences from colleagues who didn't know whether to offer sympathy or pretend they hadn't noticed that my wife was broadcasting her affair to her 40,000 followers. Dude, you seeing this? My coworker Jake asked on Thursday, holding up his phone. Your wife's really living her best life down there. I glanced at the screen. Talia was feeding Damien strawberries while he gazed at her like she'd just solved world hunger. The caption read, "When someone makes you feel alive again. No regrets. Living my truth, Miami." Yep, I said. Living her truth. That's definitely what that is. Jake shifted uncomfortably. Maybe she's just, working through some stuff? Oh, she's working through something, all right, I said, returning to my computer. Probably Damien's entire repertoire. The thing about being publicly cuckolded in the social media age is that everyone becomes an expert on your marriage. Suddenly, people who couldn't maintain a houseplant for more than a week were offering relationship advice. The pitying looks were almost worse than the mockery. By Friday, I'd had enough. Not of the affair. I'd made peace with that months ago. Not even of the public humiliation. I'd developed a thick skin working in corporate strategy. No, I was tired of being treated like a victim in my own life story. So I called my lawyer. "Marcus," I said when he picked up, "I need divorce papers, the works, and I need them by Sunday." Marcus Williams, had been my drinking buddy in college before he discovered he had a talent for making other people's problems disappear legally. Finally ready to pull the trigger on Talia? "She's making it pretty easy," I said. "Check her Instagram if you want evidence of adultery. She's practically live tweeting it." "Jesus, Ronan, I'm sorry, man. That's rough." "Don't be sorry. Be thorough. I want everything documented. Every post, every picture, every tag location. And Marcus, I want the papers served the moment she walks through the door." Sunday evening, Talia returned with a tan that cost more than my car payment and an attitude that suggested she expected me to thank her for the experience. She breezed through the front door like she was walking a red carpet, designer luggage trailing behind her like expensive breadcrumbs. "Miss me?" she asked, not waiting for an answer as she headed toward the kitchen. "Miami was incredible. Damien knows everyone down there. We went to this private club where..." She stopped talking when she saw the papers on the kitchen table. Her face went through several interesting color changes, settling on a shade that clashed beautifully with her spray tan. "What is this?" she asked, though we both knew exactly what it was. "Divorce papers," I said helpfully. "Your bags are packed. They're by the door." For the first time in our 5-year marriage, Talia was speechless. She picked up the papers with trembling hands, scanning the legal language that would dissolve our union faster than her fake tan would fade. "You can't be serious," she finally managed. "Absolutely serious. Though I have to admire the timing. Most people wait until after the divorce to start sleeping with other people, but you've always been ahead of the curve." Her shock was rapidly transforming into rage, and I have to admit, I was enjoying the show. Talia was used to being in control of every narrative, every conversation, every room she entered. This was uncharted territory for her. "You bastard," she hissed. "You can't just throw me out. This is my home, too." "Actually, it's not. Check the deed. My name only." Funny thing about prenups, they work exactly as advertised. The prenup had been her idea, back when she was convinced she'd be the one trading up. Life has a sense of humor like that. Talia's eyes filled with tears, but I'd seen her practice this look in the mirror too many times to be moved by it. "Ronan, please, we can work this out. Miami was just a mistake, a moment of weakness, a spiritual journey of self-discovery." I shook my head. "Save it for your followers, Talia. I'm sure they'll eat it up." She tried a different approach, moving closer with what I assumed was supposed to be a seductive smile. "Come on, baby. You know you don't really want this. We're good together." "We were good together," I corrected. Past tense. Now we're just two people who share a lawyer's billing hours. The tears dried up instantly, replaced by the cold fury I'd been expecting. This was the real Talia, the one her followers never got to see. "You think you're so smart," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You think you can just discard me like I'm nothing? You have no idea what you're dealing with. Enlighten me." "I'll destroy you, Ronan. Your job, your reputation, your pathetic little life. When I'm done, you'll wish you'd never been born." I had to give her credit. When Talia made a threat, she committed to it completely. Unfortunately for her, I'd been expecting this conversation for months and had prepared accordingly. "Interesting strategy," I said. "Threaten the guy who has photographic evidence of your adultery. Really playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, pausing only to deliver what she clearly thought was a devastating parting shot. "This isn't over, Ronan. Not even close." "You're right," I agreed. "It's not over, but it's about to be a lot more fun." The war began at dawn, which in Talia's world meant around 10:30 when she finally crawled out of whatever luxury hotel bed Damien was paying for. Her first salvo was a carefully crafted Instagram post featuring her looking devastated but beautiful in what appeared to be a high-end coffee shop. The caption was a masterpiece of manipulation. "Sometimes the people closest to you show their true colors when you're most vulnerable. Healing isn't easy, but I'm grateful for friends who remind me of my worth. Betrayed, Hakan stronger than ever. Truth will out." Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with messages from mutual friends, Talia's followers, and random strangers who felt compelled to share their opinions about my character. Apparently, I was everything from a narcissistic abuser to a controlling monster who couldn't handle his wife's success. The narrative was simple and effective. Talia was the victim of a cruel, vindictive husband who'd thrown her out for pursuing her dreams. The affair? What affair? That was just a business relationship twisted by a jealous man's paranoid imagination. I had to admire the strategy. In the court of public opinion, the first story usually wins, and Talia had always been better at storytelling than I was. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed I would play defense. I called Marcus from my office, watching through my window as Chicago went about its business, oblivious to the domestic warfare being waged in digital space. "Have you seen her posts?" I asked. "Hard to miss them. She's really going for the sympathy vote. My assistant actually asked if I thought you needed therapy." "Therapy's for people who feel guilty," I said. "I'm going to need you to file a restraining order. Harassment, defamation, the usual." "Based on Instagram posts? That's a tough sell, Ronan." "Not just the posts. She's been calling my office, my clients, anyone she can think of. My boss got an earful this morning about my psychological instability and history of controlling behavior. Apparently I'm a danger to society." Marcus sighed. "I'll draw up the paperwork. But you know this is going to get uglier before it gets better, right?" "I'm counting on it." That afternoon, I had lunch with my sister Val at a restaurant downtown. Val was everything Talia wasn't. direct, honest, and completely immune to bullshit. She also had the unfortunate habit of saying exactly what she thought, regardless of whether anyone wanted to hear it. "So," she said, cutting into her salad with surgical precision, "I saw the Instagram drama. Talia's really going for the Oscar, isn't she?" "Best performance by a cheating spouse in a social media production," I agreed. "Think she has a shot?" "Oh, she's definitely winning something. Maybe not what she's hoping for, though." Val looked up from her salad. "You know people are starting to ask questions, right? Some of her followers are connecting the dots." "What kind of dots?" "The kind where a woman claims her husband threw her out for no reason, but she's been posting pictures with another man for a week. People aren't as stupid as she thinks they are." That was encouraging news, but I knew Talia wouldn't go down without a fight. She'd built her entire identity around being perceived as the victim of other people's inadequacies. Admitting she'd destroyed her marriage for an Instagram-worthy affair would require the kind of self-awareness she'd never demonstrated. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Damian Cray. We need to talk." I showed the message to Val, who raised an eyebrow. "The boyfriend wants a chat? That's interesting." "Probably wants to negotiate a ceasefire," I said. "Make sure I don't drag him down with her." "Are you going to?" Hadn't really thought about it, but now that he's brought it up. We met at a bar near his office, one of those places that tries too hard to look like an authentic dive but charges $15 for a beer. Damien was already there when I arrived, nursing what looked like an expensive whiskey and checking his phone every 30 seconds. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, well-dressed, with the kind of artificial confidence that comes from never being told no. His handshake was too firm, his smile too practiced, and his cologne too expensive. Everything about him screamed trying too hard, which probably explained why he and Talia got along so well. "Ronan," he said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. "Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "Curiosity can be dangerous," I said, sitting down, "but satisfaction brought it back." He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Look, I know the situation is complicated, but I think we can work something out that benefits everyone." Complicated is one word for it. I might have chosen adultery, but I'm old-fashioned that way. Damien's smile flickered. "Talia and I, what we have is real. I know that's hard to hear, but—" "Actually, it's the first honest thing anyone said to me in months," I interrupted. "I appreciate the candor. So what do you want, Damien?" "I want to make this easy for everyone. Talia's been through enough. The divorce, the public scrutiny, people questioning her integrity. She doesn't deserve that." "And what does she deserve?" "A fresh start. A chance to move on without having her past weaponized against her." I took a sip of my beer, considering his words. "You want me to take down the evidence? Stop cooperating with my lawyer. Let her rewrite history so she comes out looking like the hero." "I want you to be the bigger man." "Interesting proposition. What's in it for me?" Damien leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I can make sure your company gets the Meridian account. $50 million in billings over 3 years. That's the kind of win that makes careers." Now we were getting somewhere. The Meridian account was the white whale of Chicago marketing, a luxury hotel chain looking to rebrand itself for younger demographics. Every firm in the city had been chasing it for months. "You can deliver Meridian?" I asked. "I have connections. The right word in the right ear, and your company becomes the front runner." "And all I have to do is let your girlfriend destroy my reputation?" "All you have to do is move on with your life." I finished my beer, considering the offer. It was generous, too generous, actually, which meant there was something he wasn't telling me. "Can I ask you something, Damien?" "Sure." "How long have you been planning this?" His face went blank. "Planning what?" "The affair, the public humiliation, the convenient job offer that requires me to disappear quietly. How long have you been working this angle?" "I don't know what you're talking about." But his eyes said otherwise. Damien Cray was many things, but he wasn't a good liar. And suddenly, several things that hadn't made sense began clicking into place. "You know what's funny?" I said, standing up. "Talia never mentioned that your company was pitching Meridian. Seems like the kind of thing she'd brag about, doesn't it?" I left him sitting there, probably trying to figure out how much I'd actually guessed and how much was just fishing. The truth was, I hadn't guessed anything until that moment, but his reaction told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just an affair, it was a setup. The pieces started falling into place once I knew what to look for. Late that night, I sat in my home office with a bottle of wine and a legal pad, mapping out the timeline of my marriage's destruction. 6 months ago, Talia had started asking more questions about my work. Not the usual, "How was your day?" questions, but specific inquiries about clients, strategies, and upcoming pitches. I'd thought she was finally taking an interest in my career. 4 months ago, she'd suggested we attend more industry events together. Networking, she'd called it, building our brand as a power couple. I'd been flattered that she wanted to be more involved in my professional life. 3 months ago, she'd met Damien at one of those events. I remembered the introduction. He'd been charming, attentive, and very interested in hearing about my work. He'd even asked for my business card. 2 months ago, the affair had started. Looking at it now, the pattern was obvious. Damien had identified me as competition for the Meridian account, researched my weaknesses, and decided that seducing my wife was the most efficient way to neutralize me. Talia, flattered by the attention and oblivious to being used, had played her part perfectly. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: destroy my marriage publicly, damage my professional reputation, and leave me too distracted and demoralized to compete effectively. By the time I figured out what was happening, Damien would have secured the account and moved on to his next target. There was just one problem with his strategy. He'd underestimated me. I spent the next morning making phone calls. Not to lawyers or therapists or anyone else who might try to talk me out of what I was planning. No, I called people who owed me favors, people who knew things, and people who understood that information was the most valuable currency in Chicago. My first call was to Jennifer Walsh, a private investigator who specialized in corporate espionage. We'd worked together on a case involving industrial theft, and she'd impressed me with her thoroughness and discretion. "Ronan," she said when she picked up, "I heard about the divorce. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm not. I need a favor, Jennifer. Background check on Damien Cray, CEO of Cray Creative. Everything you can find: financial records, business dealings, personal relationships, especially personal relationships." "How deep do you want me to go?" "Ocean floor. And Jennifer, this one's personal." "Those are the best kind. Give me 48 hours. My second call was to Tommy Sullivan, a freelance photographer who made his living documenting the city's social scene. If you'd been to a party, gala, or networking event in Chicago over the past 5 years, Tommy had probably taken your picture. "Tommy, I need photos, specifically any pictures you've taken of Damien Cray over the past year. Parties, events, anywhere he might have been with someone who wasn't his date." "This about your wife?" "This is about the truth." "Fair enough. I'll send you what I have by tonight." The photos arrived in my email at 6 p.m., and they were better than I'd hoped. Damien at a charity gala with a redhead who definitely wasn't Talia. Damien at a corporate retreat with his arm around a blonde who looked young enough to be his daughter. Damien at a restaurant, holding hands with a brunette across a candlelit table. But the best photo was from 2 weeks ago: Damien and a striking woman with dark hair, photographed outside a hotel downtown. The timestamp showed it was taken on a Tuesday afternoon, the same day he'd been texting Talia about missing her and counting the hours until they could be together again. Jennifer's report arrived the next morning, and it was a masterpiece of investigative work. Damien Cray, it turned out, was not the successful businessman he pretended to be. His company was hemorrhaging money, he was behind on his office rent, and he owed substantial sums to several creditors. The Meridian account wasn't just a prize for him, it was a lifeline. More interesting were the personal details. Damien had a pattern of targeting married women whose husbands worked in marketing or advertising. Over the past 3 years, he'd had affairs with at least 4 such women, always ending the relationships once he'd secured the business intelligence he needed. Talia wasn't his girlfriend. She was his mark. Armed with this information, I decided it was time to go on the offensive. But first, I needed to have a conversation with some old friends who'd been conspicuously absent since Talia's social media campaign began. I started with Steve and Amanda Morrison, a couple we'd socialized with regularly until my marriage became public entertainment. They'd been noticeably quiet since Talia's Instagram offensive, and I had a feeling I knew why. I found them at their usual Friday night spot, a trendy restaurant in Lincoln Park where the portions were small and the prices were astronomical. They were seated at their regular table, looking uncomfortable when they saw me approaching. "Ronan," Steve said, standing up with the enthusiasm of someone greeting a tax auditor. "Hey man, how are you holding up?" "Never better," I said, pulling up a chair without being invited. "Mind if I join you?" Amanda shifted nervously in her seat. "Of course not. We heard about the divorce. That's got to be tough." "It has its moments, but I'm learning a lot about friendship in the process. Amazing how quickly people choose sides when things get messy." Steve and Amanda exchanged glances. They knew what was coming. "Look, Ronan," Steve said, "this whole situation with Talia, it's complicated. We don't want to get in the middle of it." "Funny thing about being in the middle," I said. Usually that's where you find the truth. But I guess some people prefer the view from the sidelines. That's not fair, Amanda protested. Talia's our friend too. She's been really hurt by all this. Has she? Because from where I'm sitting, she seems to be having the time of her life. New boyfriend, new narrative, new opportunities to play the victim. Must be exhausting, all that suffering. You don't understand, Amanda said. She told us what really happened. How controlling you were, how you monitored her every move, how you threatened her when she tried to leave. I nodded thoughtfully. Interesting story. Very compelling. Did she mention the part where she's been sleeping with Damian Cray for 3 months? Or the part where she broadcast their affair on social media while we were still married? Those details seem to have gotten lost in translation. Steve leaned forward. Come on, man. You can't blame her for moving on. Marriages end. People find new relationships. It doesn't make her a bad person. You're absolutely right, I agreed. People do find new relationships. But most people wait until their current relationship is actually over before they start advertising the new one. Call me old-fashioned. I pulled out my phone and showed them one of Talia's Miami photos, the one where she and Damian were feeding each other strawberries. This was taken 4 days before she came home to find divorce papers. Does this look like a woman who was being controlled and threatened? Amanda stared at the photo, her face flushing. That's not... She said it was just business. Business, I repeated. Right, the strawberry feeding business. Very lucrative industry. Steve cleared his throat. Look, Ronan, we're sorry this happened, but taking it out on us isn't going to solve anything. I'm not taking anything out on anyone, I said, standing up. I'm just clarifying the record. See, I thought we were friends. Real friends. The kind who ask questions before they pick sides. The kind who don't abandon someone based on Instagram posts and sob stories. We didn't abandon you, Amanda said weakly. No? When was the last time either of you called me? Texted me? Asked how I was doing? Because Talia's been getting plenty of support from our mutual friends. Funny how that works. I left them sitting there, probably trying to figure out how to spin this conversation for their next social gathering. But I wasn't done. I had 2 more stops to make. The next confrontation was with my former poker group, 5 guys I'd been playing cards with for 3 years. They'd canceled our regular game indefinitely after Talia's media blitz, citing scheduling conflicts and wanting to stay neutral. I found them at Murphy's pub, playing pool and pretending they hadn't seen me walk in. The conversation that followed was brief and pointed. Gentlemen, I said, approaching their table, fancy meeting you here? The silence was deafening. Finally, Mike Thompson, looked up from his beer. Hey, Ronan, how's it going? Interesting question. How do you think it's going? Look, man, we heard about the divorce. That's rough, but we figured you probably needed some space to work things out. Space, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it? Because it feels more like abandonment. But maybe I'm using the wrong terminology. Dave Williams shifted uncomfortably. Come on, don't be like that. This whole thing with Talia, it's messy. We just don't want to get involved. Involved in what? Friendship? Loyalty? Basic human decency? That's not what this is about, said Paul Davis, finally looking me in the eye. Your wife said some pretty serious things about you, Ronan, about how you treated her. We can't just ignore that. And what did I say about her? What? What did I say about Talia? What accusations did I make? What stories did I tell? Because I'm curious about this evidence you used to convict me. The silence stretched out like a bad poker hand. They knew they had nothing, and I knew they knew. That's what I thought, I said. You took the word of a woman who's been publicly flaunting her affair and decided I was the villain. No questions asked, no benefit of the doubt, no consideration for 3 years of friendship, just guilty until proven innocent, and no opportunity for proof. It's not that simple, Mike protested. Actually, it is exactly that simple. Friendship isn't complicated, guys. It's about loyalty, trust, and having someone's back when things get tough. But apparently those are old-fashioned concepts. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and for the record, everything she said about me was a lie, but I guess you'll figure that out eventually, assuming you're capable of learning from your mistakes. Walking out of that bar, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Clarity. The people I'd thought were my friends had revealed their true nature, and while it was disappointing, it was also liberating. I no longer had to worry about collateral damage or protecting relationships that had never been real in the first place. It was time to take the gloves off. The beauty of social media is that it gives everyone a platform to destroy themselves publicly. Talia had been using Instagram like a loaded weapon, but she'd forgotten the first rule of firearms. Always know what's behind your target. I spent Saturday morning in my office, not the corporate one where I pushed papers and attended meetings, but my real office, the spare bedroom where I kept my computers, my files, and my collection of information about people who'd made the mistake of underestimating me. My first move was subtle. I created a fake Instagram account using the name of a mutual acquaintance who'd moved to Seattle 2 years ago. The profile looked legitimate, stolen photos, fake history, enough followers to seem real. Then I started commenting on Talia's posts, not attacking her directly. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I asked innocent questions that highlighted the inconsistencies in her story. When she posted about being betrayed by someone she trusted, I commented, "Wait, didn't you just post photos with another guy last week? I'm confused about the timeline here." When she shared a quote about surviving emotional abuse, I asked, "Is this about your husband? Because those Miami photos looked pretty happy. Did something happen after you got back?" The beauty of this approach was that I wasn't making accusations. I was just asking the same questions her followers were starting to ask themselves. And once people start questioning a narrative, it's hard to get them to stop. Within hours, other followers were chiming in with their own questions. The comments section of her post became a battlefield between supporters who believed her victim story and skeptics who'd done the math on her timeline. But that was just the opening move. My next call was to Marcus, who'd been busy documenting Talia's harassment campaign for the restraining order. "How's the case coming?" I asked. "Strong. She's given us plenty to work with. The phone calls to your office, the messages to your clients, the social media posts that clearly reference you. But Ronan, there's something else you should know." "What?" "She's hired a lawyer, Rebecca Stone from Morrison & Associates. They specialize in high-profile divorces, and they're not cheap. I'm wondering where she got the money." That was an excellent question. Talia's influencer income was sporadic at best, and I'd already frozen our joint accounts. She was staying at the Four Seasons, eating at expensive restaurants, and now hiring premium legal representation. Someone was funding her lifestyle, and I had a pretty good idea who. "Send me everything you have on her expenses since the separation," I said. "Credit card records, hotel bills, restaurant charges. I want to see exactly how she's paying for this new life of hers." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Damian Cray is a lot more invested in this situation than he's pretending to be." That afternoon, I drove to Talia's temporary residence at the Four Seasons. I wasn't planning to confront her. That would have violated the restraining order I'd filed. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. I didn't have to wait long. At 3:30, a black Mercedes pulled up to the hotel entrance, and Damian Cray stepped out. He was carrying flowers and what looked like a jewelry box, playing the role of devoted boyfriend for anyone who might be watching. Talia appeared a few minutes later, dressed like she was heading to a photo shoot. They embraced dramatically, kissed for the cameras. Her Instagram photographer was discreetly positioned nearby, and climbed into the Mercedes together. I followed them to a private club downtown, the kind of place where membership costs more than most people make in a year. They were meeting with other couples, all of whom looked like they'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. This was Talia's new world, wealthy, glamorous, and completely artificial. I took photos from across the street, documenting their afternoon of conspicuous consumption. But more importantly, I noticed something interesting about their body language. When they thought no one was looking, the chemistry disappeared. Damian checked his phone constantly, and Talia seemed more interested in the other women's jewelry than in her supposed soulmate. This wasn't a love affair, it was a business arrangement. That evening, I had dinner with Val at a restaurant near my apartment. She'd been following Talia's social media drama with the fascination of someone watching a train wreck in slow motion. "Your ex-wife is really committing to this victim narrative," she said, scrolling through her phone. She posted a photo of herself crying in a bubble bath with a caption about healing from trauma. The comments are brutal. Brutal how? Half the people are offering support and sympathy. The other half are calling her out for the timeline inconsistencies. Someone posted screenshots of her Miami photos with timestamps showing they were taken while she was still married. Another person found photos of her with 3 different men over the past 6 months. "The internet is a wonderful thing," I said. "People love a good mystery, and Talia's story has more holes than Swiss cheese." "There's something else," Val said, lowering her voice. "I did some digging on Damian Cray. You know how I work in commercial real estate? Well, his company is 3 months behind on their office lease. They're about to be evicted." "Interesting. What else?" "He's been sued twice in the past year by former clients who claim he overbilled them. There are also some interesting rumors about his personal life. Apparently, he has a reputation for targeting married women whose husbands work in advertising." "A reputation among whom?" "Other women he's dated. I found a blog post from someone calling herself Chicago Survivor, who described a relationship that sounds exactly like what he's doing with Talia. Wealthy older man, promises to help her career, turns out to be using her for information about her husband's business. I felt a familiar surge of satisfaction. The pieces were falling into place exactly as I'd hoped. Send me that blog post, I said. And Val, start documenting everything you can find about Damien's financial situation. I have a feeling it's going to be relevant very soon. Sunday morning brought a new development. Talia had posted a long, rambling statement about toxic masculinity and financial abuse, claiming that I'd cut off her access to money as a way to control her. The post had hundreds of comments and had been shared dozens of times. It was also completely false, and I had the documentation to prove it. I called Marcus immediately. Have you seen her latest post? Hard to miss it. She's really doubling down on the abuse narrative. Good, because I have bank records showing that she withdrew $8,000 from our joint account the day before she left for Miami. I also have credit card statements showing she's been spending freely ever since. Her claim about financial abuse just became defamation. That's actionable, Marcus agreed. But Ronan, I have to ask, are you sure you want to escalate this? Once we start filing lawsuits, this becomes public record. Your personal life is going to be dissected by strangers. My personal life is already being dissected by strangers, I pointed out. The difference is that now I get to control the narrative. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Damien Cray was standing outside my apartment building, looking significantly less confident than he had at our previous meeting. We need to talk, he said when I answered the intercom. No, we don't. But if you want to stand on a public sidewalk and make a fool of yourself, that's your constitutional right. I went downstairs, curious about what had prompted this visit. Damien looked like he hadn't slept in days, and his usual polished appearance was showing cracks. This has gone far enough, he said without preamble. You're destroying an innocent woman out of spite. Innocent, I repeated. That's an interesting word choice. Does Talia know about your other girlfriends, Damien? Or is she still under the impression that she's your one true love? His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Just like you don't know about the blog post from Chicago Survivor describing your exact same playbook with another married woman. Just like you don't know about the financial records showing your company is broke. Just like you don't know about the photos of you with 3 different women over the past month. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of Tommy's photos, Damien with the dark-haired woman outside the hotel. His expression told me everything I needed to know. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to stop funding Talia's lifestyle, stop encouraging her harassment campaign, and start looking for a new line of work. Because when I'm done exposing your little con game, you won't be able to get a job selling used cars. You can't prove anything. Can't I? I have financial records, photographs, witness statements, and a very detailed timeline of your activities. I also have a private investigator who's very good at her job and a lawyer who specializes in destroying people like you. Damien tried to salvage some dignity. This isn't over. You're absolutely right, I agreed. It's not over, but it's about to get a lot worse for you and your girlfriend. He walked away without another word, probably trying to figure out how much damage I could actually do. The answer was simple. All of it. That night, I sat in my apartment, planning the final phase of my campaign. Talia and Damien had declared war on my reputation, my career, and my peace of mind. They'd recruited my friends, attacked my character, and tried to destroy everything I'd built. Now it was my turn. The final battle began on a Tuesday morning with a phone call that changed everything. I was in my office, reviewing quarterly reports and pretending to care about market projections, when Marcus called with news that made my day considerably more interesting. Ronan, we have a problem, or maybe an opportunity depending on how you look at it. I'm listening. Talia's lawyer just filed a motion claiming you've been harassing her client through social media. They're asking for an emergency restraining order against you, and they want financial support pending the divorce settlement. Based on what evidence? That's the interesting part. They claim you've been using fake accounts to post threatening comments on her Instagram. They have screenshots and everything. I leaned back in my chair, genuinely impressed. She's good. I'll give her that. Create a problem, then demand protection from it. Very clever. There's just one issue with her strategy, Marcus continued. The IP addresses on those fake accounts trace back to a coffee shop near Damien Cray's office. Either you've been driving across town to use their Wi-Fi, or someone else is playing games. Someone else is playing games, I confirmed. The question is whether we can prove it. We can do better than prove it. We can use it. That afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. Meet me at Millennium Park, 6 p.m. Come alone. T. Talia wanted a face-to-face meeting, which meant she was either desperate or setting a trap. Possibly both. I texted back, "See you there." I arrived early and found a bench with good sight lines, somewhere public enough to discourage violence, but private enough for honest conversation. Talia appeared at exactly 6 o'clock, looking like she'd stepped off a magazine cover despite the stress lines around her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said, sitting down beside me with careful distance between us. "Curiosity can be dangerous," I replied. "What do you want, Talia?" "I want this to stop. The lawyers, the social media war, the investigations. It's gotten out of hand." "Has it?" "Because from my perspective, it's just getting started." She turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, uncertain, human. "Ronan, I know I hurt you. I know I handled this badly. But we can still end this civilly." "Civilly," I repeated. "Like posting fake harassment claims? Like trying to destroy my professional reputation? Like stealing money from our joint accounts while claiming financial abuse?" "I never stole anything. That money was mine too." "The money, yes. The lies about how you got it, no. The fabricated harassment claims, definitely no. The coordinated campaign to turn our friends against me, absolutely no." Talia's mask slipped slightly. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The things people are saying about me online, the questions, the accusations. I needed to defend myself." "From what? The truth?" "From your version of the truth? You made me look like a monster." I laughed, genuinely amused. "Talia, I didn't make you look like anything. I just documented what you actually did. If you don't like how that looks, maybe you should have made different choices." "I fell in love with someone else. That happens. It doesn't make me evil." "No, but lying about it does. Publicly humiliating me does. Trying to destroy my career does. Those things make you something worse than evil. They make you predictable." She stood up, anger replacing vulnerability. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you have all the answers. But you don't know everything, Ronan. You don't know what Damien and I really have together." "Actually, I know exactly what you have together. A business arrangement. He's using you to get information about the Meridian account, and you're using him to fund your lifestyle while you try to take me for everything I'm worth. It's very transactional." "That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time he paid for dinner without posting about it on social media? When was the last time you spent time together without photographers present? When was the last time he looked at you like you were more than a means to an end?" Talia's face went through several color changes. "You're just jealous." "I'm many things, Talia, but jealous isn't one of them. See, I know something you don't know." "What?" "Damien's broke. His company is 3 months behind on rent. He's being sued by former clients, and he owes money to half the creditors in Chicago. The Meridian account isn't just a prize for him. It's the only thing standing between him and bankruptcy." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Ask him about his financial situation. Ask him about the other married women he seduced for business intelligence. Ask him about the blog post from his previous victim describing his exact same playbook." I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes, but she fought against it. "Even if that were true, it doesn't change how I feel about him." "Doesn't it?" "Because I have photos of him with 3 other women over the past month, including one taken while you were posting about your unbreakable bond on Instagram." I showed her the hotel photo on my phone. Talia stared at it for a long moment, her face cycling through disbelief, recognition, and rage. "This could be anyone," she said finally. "It could be, but it's not. Her name is Sarah Mitchell. She's married to a creative director at Brennan and Associates, and Damien's been sleeping with her for 6 weeks. Want to see the others?" Talia's composure finally cracked. "You bastard. You sick, obsessed bastard. You can't stand that I'm happy, so you're making up lies to destroy it." "I'm not making up anything. I'm just connecting dots. The same dots your followers are connecting, the same dots the media will connect when this story breaks, the same dots Damien's other victims connected too late to save themselves." "Story? What story?" "The story about Chicago's most notorious con man and his latest mark. The story about a woman so desperate for attention that she destroyed her marriage for a man who was using her. The story about how social media narcissism makes people vulnerable to predators." Talia stood up abruptly. "This conversation is over." "Yes, it is. But Talia, when you figure out I'm telling the truth about Damien, remember this conversation. Remember that I tried to warn you before you lost everything." She walked away without another word, probably already planning her next social media post about my continued harassment. But I could see the doubt in her posture, the way she kept checking her phone, the uncertainty that would eat at her until she demanded answers from Damien. That evening, I received a call from Jennifer, my private investigator. "Ronan, I have an update on Damien Cray. It's bigger than we thought." "How much bigger?" "Federal investigation bigger. The FBI is looking into his business practices as part of a broader fraud case. Apparently, he's been running the same con on multiple companies across the Midwest. Seduce employees' wives, gather intelligence, use it to undercut competitors in bidding processes." "Jesus, how many companies?" "At least 6 that we know of. The pattern is always the same. Target married women whose husbands work in marketing or advertising, gain their trust, extract business information, then disappear once he gets what he needs." "What about the wives?" "Most of them end up divorced and financially ruined. A few have filed complaints, but it's hard to prove criminal intent in affairs of the heart. Until now. Until now, because you documented everything and you have evidence of the broader pattern. The FBI is very interested in talking to you." I felt a surge of satisfaction mixed with something darker. Talia had thought she was playing in the minor leagues, but she'd actually stumbled into a federal case. Her Instagram affair was about to become evidence in a criminal investigation. "Set up the meeting," I said. "It's time to end this properly." The next morning brought chaos. Then Talia's social media accounts went dark. No posts, no stories, no carefully curated content. Her friends started posting worried messages asking if she was okay. The sudden silence was more dramatic than anything she'd shared during her public breakdown. I knew what had happened. She'd confronted Damien about the other women, about his financial situation, about the real reason he'd pursued her, and he'd either confirmed my accusations or failed to deny them convincingly. My phone rang at 10 a.m. It was Talia, and she was crying. "You were right," she said without preamble. "About everything. He was using me." "I'm sorry," I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. "No, you're not. You're probably celebrating." "I'm not celebrating, Talia. I'm relieved. There's a difference." He threw me out, said I was too much trouble, that I'd served my purpose, 5 months of my life, and I was just a business expense to him. "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know. I can't afford the hotel anymore. My lawyer wants money I don't have. My friends, they're not returning my calls." "Your friends were never really your friends. They were your audience. When the show ended, they found something else to watch." God, I'm such an idiot. How did I not see this? "Because you saw what you wanted to see. We all do that sometimes." There was a long silence. Finally, Talia spoke again. "Ronan, I know I don't deserve to ask, but is there any way we can work this out? Not get back together, but maybe end this without destroying each other completely?" "That depends. Are you willing to tell the truth, publicly, about the affair, about Damien, about the lies you told about me?" "If I do that, I'll lose everything, my reputation, my followers, my career." "You've already lost those things, Talia. The question is whether you want to lose them with dignity or without it." Another long pause. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to post the truth. I want you to apologize to the people you lied to. And I want you to cooperate with the FBI investigation into Damien's business practices." "The FBI?" "He's been running this con on multiple women across the Midwest. You're not his first victim, and you won't be his last unless someone stops him." Oh, God, this is really happening." "Yes, it is. But Talia, if you do the right thing now, if you help stop him from hurting other women, maybe you can salvage something from this mess. Maybe you can be the hero of your own story instead of the victim. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. After that, the story breaks with or without your cooperation." I hung up, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Closure. Not the bitter satisfaction of revenge, but the clean resolution of justice. Talia had been both perpetrator and victim, and now she had a chance to choose which role would define her. The next 24 hours would determine whether she was capable of growth, or whether she would continue to be the same narcissistic person who had destroyed our marriage for Instagram content. Either way, my part in this story was almost over. The truth came out on a Thursday morning, delivered in a series of Instagram posts that marked the end of Talia's career as a professional victim and the beginning of something that might eventually resemble redemption. Her first post was a photo of herself. No makeup, no filters, sitting in what looked like a modest hotel room, a far cry from the Four Seasons luxury she'd been flaunting for weeks. The caption was a masterpiece of brutal honesty. "I owe a lot of people an apology. Over the past few months, I've told lies about my marriage, my divorce, and my ex-husband. I claimed he was controlling and abusive when the truth is that I was having an affair and he caught me. I publicly humiliated him while playing the victim, and I used social media to destroy his reputation while protecting my own. None of that was true, and none of it was fair. The second post continued the confession. The man I had an affair with was using me to gather information about my husband's business. I was so desperate for attention and validation that I didn't see I was being manipulated. I helped him try to destroy my husband's career, and I convinced myself it was love when it was actually just business. I am cooperating with federal investigators looking into this man's fraudulent business practices. The third and final post was the one that surprised me. To Ronan, I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't expect you to, but I want you to know that I finally understand what I threw away. You deserved better than what I gave you, and you handled this situation with more grace than I had any right to expect. I'm sorry for everything. Within hours, the posts had thousands of comments. Some people praised her honesty, others accused her of trying to manipulate public opinion one more time, and a few expressed genuine sympathy for someone who'd clearly lost everything. But the overwhelming response was a collective sense that the drama was finally over. My phone rang constantly that day, reporters, friends, colleagues, and strangers who wanted my reaction to Talia's confession. I ignored most of the calls, but I did answer when Marcus called with an update on the legal situation. The restraining order request has been withdrawn, he said. Talia's lawyer filed a motion this morning dropping all claims against you. They're also prepared to stipulate to an uncontested divorce with no financial settlement. What changed their mind? Probably the fact that their client just admitted to perjury in a public forum. Also, the FBI contacted them yesterday about Talia's cooperation in the Cray investigation. They want this to go away quietly. And Damien, arrested this morning on federal fraud charges. Turns out he's been running this scam for 3 years, targeting at least 8 different companies. The total damages are estimated at over $2 million. I felt a surge of satisfaction that had nothing to do with personal revenge and everything to do with justice. Damien Cray had built his career on exploiting vulnerable people, and now he was going to face the consequences. That evening, I met Val for dinner at the same restaurant where we'd planned my counterattack weeks earlier. She was scrolling through the reactions to Talia's confession, shaking her head in amazement. I have to admit, she said, I didn't think she had it in her. That apology was actually genuine. People can surprise you, I agreed. Sometimes they're worse than you expect, sometimes they're better. Talia chose to be better when it mattered. Are you going to forgive her? I'm going to move on from her. That's not the same thing as forgiveness, but it's close enough for government work. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you for giving me a chance to do the right thing. I know it doesn't fix anything, but it's a start. T. I showed the message to Val, who raised an eyebrow. Are you going to respond? No. She needs to figure out who she is without an audience, including me. The Meridian account decision was announced the following Monday. My company won the contract, not because of any sabotage or manipulation, but because our proposal was the strongest. It turned out that when you're not distracted by personal drama and vindictive ex-wives, you can focus on doing good work. The victory felt different than I'd expected. There was satisfaction, certainly, but also a sense of completion that went beyond professional success. I'd proven that the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was simply being better than the people who'd tried to destroy you. 2 weeks later, I was cleaning out my home office when I found a photo from our wedding day. Talia in her dress, radiant with happiness, looking at me like I was the most important person in her world. For a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her, before the social media obsession and the need for constant validation had consumed everything good about her. I looked at the photo for a long time, then put it in the box with the rest of our shared history. Not because I was holding on to the past, but because pretending it never happened would be its own kind of lie. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, I found Steve and Amanda Morrison standing on my doorstep, looking uncomfortable and contrite. Ronan, Steve said, we were hoping we could talk. About what? About how wrong we were, about the assumptions we made, about being terrible friends when you needed us most. I considered sending them away, but curiosity won out. Come in. We sat in my living room, the same room where Talia had received her divorce papers, and they proceeded to deliver the most awkward apology in the history of human communication. We should have asked questions, Amanda said. We should have gotten your side of the story before we chose sides. We let Talia's version of events cloud our judgment, Steve added. We forgot that there are always 2 sides to every story. 3 sides, I corrected. Your side, their side, and the truth. But I appreciate the sentiment. Is there any chance we can rebuild this friendship? Amanda asked. I thought about it for a moment. These people had abandoned me when things got difficult. but they'd also had the courage to admit they were wrong. That had to count for something. "We can try," I said finally, "but it's going to take time. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight." "We understand," Steve said. "We just wanted you to know that we're sorry, and we'd like the chance to be better friends going forward." After they left, I returned to my office and finished packing away the remnants of my marriage. At the bottom of the box, I found a notebook where I'd been tracking Talia's lies, Damien's schemes, and the evidence I'd gathered during my investigation. I looked through the pages, remembering the anger and hurt that had driven me to such meticulous documentation. Then I carried the notebook to the kitchen and fed it to the garbage disposal, page by page, watching 5 months of obsession disappear down the drain. The last page was a timeline I'd created showing how Damien had manipulated Talia and used her to attack me. As I watched it disappear, I realized that I no longer cared about the details of their deception. The story was over. Justice had been served, and I was free to write the next chapter of my life. 6 months later, I was having coffee with Jennifer, my private investigator, when she told me that Damien Cray had been sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for fraud and conspiracy. His victims, including Talia, had been awarded restitution, though most of them would never recover the full extent of their losses. "What about Talia?" I asked. "How is she doing?" "Better than expected, actually. She got a job at a nonprofit, working with women who've been victims of financial fraud. Apparently, she's good at it. Something about understanding the mindset of people who've been manipulated. Good for her. She's also been seeing a therapist, staying off social media, and generally trying to rebuild her life without an audience. Word is, she's actually becoming a decent human being." "People can change," I said. "Sometimes they just need the right motivation." That evening, I was walking through Millennium Park, the same place where Talia had asked me to end our war, when I saw a familiar figure sitting on a bench near the lake. It was her, but she looked different, older, quieter, more substantial somehow. She saw me approaching and smiled nervously. "Hi, Ronan." "Hi, Talia. How are you?" "Getting better, one day at a time." She gestured to the empty space beside her. "Would you like to sit? I promise I'm not going to ask you to take me back or forgive me or anything dramatic like that." I sat down, curious about what she wanted to say. "I wanted to thank you," she said after a moment. "For what?" "For forcing me to face the truth about myself. For not letting me get away with the lies. For giving me the chance to do the right thing, even when I didn't deserve it." "You did the right thing on your own, Talia. I just created the circumstances where you had to choose." "I know, but you could have destroyed me completely, and you didn't. You could have made sure I never recovered from this. And instead, you gave me a path to redemption. That means something." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the lake. Finally, Talia spoke again. "I know we can never be friends. I know I burned that bridge beyond repair. But I want you to know that I understand now what I lost when I lost you, and I'm sorry for all of it." "I know you are," I said. "And for what it's worth, I think you're going to be okay. Different, but okay. Different is good. The person I was before, she wasn't worth knowing." I stood up to leave, then paused. "Talia? The woman you're becoming? She might be worth knowing. Don't give up on her." As I walked away, I felt the last of my anger dissolve into something that might eventually become forgiveness. Not for her sake, but for mine. Because carrying that weight had been exhausting, and I was finally ready to put it down. The last laugh, it turned out, wasn't about revenge or victory or proving I was right. It was about choosing to be better than the worst thing that had happened to me. It was about refusing to let someone else's betrayal turn me into someone I didn't want to be. And in the end, that was the only victory that really mattered.